Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and let's get into it, okay? Before we get into it, though, I gotta say, you have a good day, baby, okay? All right, here's my keys right here. My daughter's about to go to work, so I had to, and today Dad can't take her because I have a show scheduled at the same time. So I wanted to just let her know that I'm proud of her and to have a blessed day and always put God first. Now, let's get into this thing. There's so many things going on, and yeah, I had to postpone this show a couple times. I put up a um a note in the community tab that we're still moving around a few shows because we're trying to have a few guests on and we're trying to accommodate them. Okay, so all shows are subject to change. Hey, would you put the boost in? Put the boost in real quick. We're having problems right now. And it's not with YouTube. It is with StreamYard. We're gonna have the problem. So please, anyway. So everybody, as always, when we start the show, you see the stuff that we have. It says, alrighty then. Now YouTube is saying we have a little problem. Hold on one second. Let's see if we can get this straight real quick. Hold on one second, everybody. It says the audio stream current is lower than the recommended. How is it? How is it lower when you just said it was an excellent stream? Anyway, it's just gonna have to be what it's gonna be. They're playing with the thing now. Now it's YouTube and it's StreamYard. But let's go. Let's get it. So I had to take a break from the from streaming a little bit, show the problems or whatever. I have a lot of collective injuries from martial arts. I tell you that much. But we're gonna still jump into the show. I want to also say I just got done watching Gonzalo, and he, man, what are they doing? YouTube, stop it! Um, I just got done watching Gonzalo Liberal, and he said that they freed him from the Ukrainian jail, and he's trying to make a pitch. By the time his video um, aired, he would be trying to get across the border and going into Hungary, and he said that uh, that his life depended on it. So if you could please get the word out or something like so. Um, I am letting the people know that his life is in danger and he is trying to cross the border into Hungary to avoid being put into a prison camp where uh, eventually he'll die. But these are the people that America is backing. See, the so-called democratic Ukraine, right? No representation, the gulag, where they come and take you by force, ignore your rights. Kind of remind you of a place, huh? Remind you of a place called home, the United States, where they kick down your doors, search your home, search your cars, plant drugs, plant everything on you just to build up a case that they want to have against you, and you have little to no recourse after that, especially if you are poor or don't have. Oh, she hasn't. She hasn't. Um, if you're poor or have little to no resources to defend yourself, and all the while they trumpet democracy. All the while, I want you to think about these things that I'm talking to you. This is the democracy that they are force feeding. Again, we see that if something is great, like say for instance, if I have a truck, if I pull up outside of in your neighborhood on your block, and I have a Brinks truck, and it's full of $100 bills, and I open the Brinks truck, and the Brinks trucks has my name. It says Brinks brought to you by Rashid. All right, so there's no doubt about it that this is my money. This is my truck, right? And I open up the back of the Brinks truck, and all of these people are hurting for money, right? And I open up and I call everybody to come to the Brinks truck and let me toss you out a band of $10,000 or $100,000. I won't have to get a gun to come through the neighborhood and knock on your door and force everybody out of out of the doors to come to the Brinks truck to get $10,000 or a band of $100,000, huh? Because that would be beneficial for the people to do that on their own. They see that the opportunity is there. They see that all they have to do is grasp the opportunity, and bim, you have the financial wherewithal wherewithal to pay your bills and to live a little bit better. So I wouldn't have to hold a gun to your head. While America and Europe continually trumpet democratic values and continue to trumpet their way of life, all around the world, they are uprooting, destroying, destabilizing, and overthrowing governments, claiming in the name of democracy, trying to force feed the nation's democracy. If you have to do that through the barrel of a gun, then evidently that there's something lacking in the appeal category to those whom you are trying to force feed democracy to. Either what you're force feeding them is not truly democracy, or what you're trying to force feed them is your version of what things should be. And so in essence, you're trying to mold them, shape them, and fashion them into your image and into your likeness, because you want to be the God. You want everybody to kowtow to you. So as we talk about this stuff, as you saw when we first got on the air, there was another picture up on the screen. And I'm going to put the picture back up on the screen because I want to discuss a few things, okay? And this shows you the criminality of the Western world. When we talk about these things, we'll talk about the criminality, the hypocrisy, the racist. These are inherently racist, criminal policies and politics that are being put over on the world, pushed over on the world, forced over on the world in the name of democracy, freedom, law, all of this stuff. Okay. Now I want to get to a main issue that I wanted to talk about for the longest. Actually, I talked about it behind closed doors, I think on one of the videos. And if you go back to one of our premium channel member videos, I think it was a 4-part video that I did. I talked about the criminality of France, the United States, and these colonial powers and what they're doing in Africa. And there's not one thing being said publicly. And now, weeks later, it breaks out into the open. Some of the stuff that I addressed in that lecture, that 4-part lecture or 5-part lecture, is now starting to burst forth into the open as we see what is going on in Niger. Now, I want to bring something to mind, okay? Give me 1 second as I bring up something, because I want to. Give me 1 second, everybody. I like to bring truth to you. Let's see. Niger. I got what I need, but I'm looking for something else to follow it up, okay? Because it is very important that you see this. It's a map. All right. Let's see if we can do this. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. That's a good map right there. That is a very good map. I didn't even know that. That I was going to bring up at the beginning. Something's going on with StreamYard. Something is going on with Stream. Okay, here we are. So, StreamYard is tripping today. They are really tripping today. But it's okay. You can catch it in a replay if they knock you off. So I'm going to add this to the stream. And I'm going to make it where, look at this up here. We're talking about Niger. All right. There's an article up here, and it talks about the West failed to derail Russia Africa Forum, according to the organizers. Now, aware of is that during the Russian African Forum, there were a spate of terrorist hits across Africa. There was a spate of destabilization operations going on across Africa. I want to recall and bring your mind to the fact that when Chad arrested forces from the Sudanese Defense Forces, which is a so-called the Rapid Defense Forces, I believe what it's called, which is a specialized forces within the Sudanese army. When the Chad military arrested some of them approaching the border with Chad, there were French special forces embedded in them. I kept telling you there's a specific reason for this, okay? There's a specific reason for this, and we'll get to it shortly. Now, look at this on this article right here, because we're going to try to go fast, and we're going to. Here it says, France and Italy announced evacuation of citizens from Niger. Now, what citizens are they talking about from Niger? What citizens of France and Italy are evacuating from Niger? The citizens are a front. This is me good. Niger is a former French colony. All right. These citizens are corporate and government workers. They are part of the corporate intelligence and the military industrial complex of NATO and European Union. And these people sometimes they bring their families there, right? And so these are the citizens that they're talking about evacuating. But while we're talking on that, I want to remind you that there are several hundred, some say a few thousand French troops in Niger as we speak. But hold up. That's not it. There are also between 1,200 and 2,000 U.S. forces in Niger also. Okay? But hold up. That's not it. There are British soldiers in Niger. But hold up. That's not it. There are other European soldiers and intelligence operatives in Niger. What is the significance of this? Okay. And why is this so important? Remember, all we can hear about in the European Union is the influx of migrants. Remember, I continue to tell you that. The influx of migrants who refuse to assimilate. All right? Remember that? Remember we talk on that? And remember what I told you, that this influx of migrants, it doesn't happen in a void. These migrants that are the so-called influx into Europe happens as European nations destabilize and overthrow governments in Africa. They want you to look at the after effects. They don't want you to look at the causing effects. Okay? So again, let us be rational. Let's look at this as rational people should look at this. If I go in your house, destabilize your unity, break your unity, steal your resources, beat and abuse your children, slap your wife around, kick your son in the neck, and they flee to my neighborhood looking for asylum, and they become an economic burden on me and my neighborhood, whose fault is it? Is it the people who were just fine in their own home? Or is it the people who caused them to flee their own home after it became violent and destabilized and all of the resources were taken from it? I'm asking. Because nobody presents these things as they are. They only present them as you would like them to be. And this is why the world is devolving as we speak. There will be war and more war because people don't address the root cause of the problems. And the West wants everybody to believe of the benevolence of Europe and America, and don't want to address the root causes of the unstable world today. So, again, let us go to something. This is what one of the articles read. Let me go to it. The headline, you can see it on your screen as we're talking. The headline states, intervention in Niger would mean declaration of war. Neighbors. This is from the neighbors of Niger. Burkina Faso and Mali have denounced the ECOWAS sanctions against the junta in Niamey. Why? Now, what is significant about this? What is significant about this? See, if you don't know the significance about this, you'll take the mainstream and the so-called alternative media's narrative without a second thought. What's the significance of that right there? Let me reread that because there's so much significance to that part right there that it needs to be reread. Intervention in Niger would mean declaration of war, according to Niger's neighbors. Which neighbors? Burkina Faso and Mali. Why? And who are they talking to? They have denounced the ECOWAS sanctions against the junta in Niamey. Now, let's read a little bit because we're going to address the significance of the title and the first sentence because it has everything to do with a play on resources and the recolonization of Africa. Okay? I mean, if your heart is weak, you don't want to listen to this because we're going to give truth out. And we know YouTube will probably take another 20, 30 subscribers after the show. Oh, yes. But listen, it says, in the first ever joint communique on Monday, the military governments in Mali and Burkina Faso warned the West and other African states against intervening in neighboring Niger. Bamako and Agagodu, I'm mispronouncing the last one, would consider such moves as an attack on their own country. Stop right there. Now, remember, I'm reading this article with you all for the first time. What's the significance about this? And why is the so-called organization of, and this is the Eastern countries of Africa, whatever, why are these people, not Eastern African, but this is an organization comprised of some African nations, but at the behest of European nations. Why are they so hell-bent on intervening in Niger? And what is the meaning about a military intervention in Niger? And why is it so vital for the West to intervene in Niger? All right? Let's go back to something because you missed something in the beginning. Remember I told you when you're dealing with this show and when you're dealing with me, we're going to provoke thought. We're going to make you think. We're not just going to dictate to you. We're going to analyze stuff, and we're going to force you to analyze stuff so that you can see the truth, so that nobody can come behind you and fool you after it, okay? So, intervention in Niger would mean declaration of war, according to Niger's neighbors. Which neighbors of Niger says this? Burkina Faso and Mali. Now, what's significant about this? Both Burkina Faso and Mali are former colonies of France, like Niger. They're former colonies of France. France used to steal all of the uranium, gold, and all of this stuff from Mali. They used to steal all of that from Burkina Faso and all of the resources. And then they would let their sisters from Europe and the West siphon off what they didn't siphon off to keep everybody happy. And what crumbs came down, they gave that to whoever they put in office in these nations. But Mali kicked France out. Burkina Faso did it. All right? And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Burkina Faso, if I'm not mistaken, is the first country. It could be another African country. But I believe they're the first country to kick the UN out, because the United States was using UN troops to destabilize and cause civil war in that nation. Okay? So it's something very significant. Let me see about this chair. Hold on. There we are. There we are. All right. So, listen again. Let's read this together. It's very important we read this together. In the first ever joint communique on Monday, the military governments in Mali and Burkina Faso warned the West. Listen, here's a key sentence right there. Oh, my shoulder. Here's a key sentence right there. Warned the West. They warned the West first, and then they warned other African states second. Why? Why didn't they? Because this is Africa. Why didn't they first warn the African states and then warn the West. It is because this is a Western contraption, a connivance. And they're using their players in these different nations to try to bring pressure on Niger. Here's something that you did not know as I read this. According to statistics, Europe used to get a lot of its uranium and other minerals and ores from Russia. And since this war in Ukraine forced upon Russia by America and European nations, NATO or the EU, whichever one you want, the EU and the United States sanctioned Russian commodities. Russia refuses also to sell only up to a certain amount of commodities to the West. Okay, now the European Union used to get a huge amount of these commodities from Russia. They have nowhere else to turn. So Niger became the number one bed for Europe to extract uranium, and France needs that uranium for their nuclear plants and for other applications. And other European Union nations need those resources in Niger. Okay? They're not telling you this. Niger became, I think, the number one or number two exporter of these commodities to the European Union since the tightening of the economic screws against Russia by the European Union. And so the president of Niger was Western friendly. He was getting his crumbs off the table while the people were not receiving the great benefit from the sale of these commodities to the West. So long as he was in power and could benefit in his corporations or his businesses benefited and his family benefited, everything was a-okay. So in the West, they're trying to present to you this man as a benevolent president, someone who the people of Niger love, but the people of Niger stands with the military. They stood with the military. But let's go further on this because this is very important. This is very important, and this goes to the crux of democracy. They say, well, the president was voted in democratically. That may be so. Viktor Yanukovych was voted in democratically. Why don't you have this much fervor for his reinstatement as president of Ukraine? Why is it that you have this much fervor for this president that was deposed by the military in Niger because the people were not receiving benefits from the resources that France, the European Union, and the US was extracting for pennies on the dollar? Huh? If we're talking about democracy, Yanukovych was the legitimate president of Ukraine, which the United States and the so-called EU, you know, those proponents of democracy worldwide, they deposed him and ignored the rule of democracy. But because they need the commodities coming out of Niger, and they need a pliant, a subdued leader that will pass policies to allow for the imposition of Western troops there and Western corporations to extract minerals and resources and commodities with little to no oversight. This is the big brouhaha about what's going on in Nigeria. But let's go further. It says, Bamako and Dagwo would consider any such move as an attack on their own countries. They said any military intervention against Niger would amount to a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali, said the point 4 of the joint communique, which a I cannot pronounce that, military spokesman deliberately repeated 3 times during a state television broadcast. Stop right there. When everybody was talking about Ukraine, when everybody was talking about China, Now everybody's talking about the Middle East, but I'm the one that was talking about the Middle East when nobody else was. I'm the one that was talking about North Africa when nobody else was talking about it. I named it the MENA region, the Middle Eastern North African region, because this region will blow sooner or later. It will be a regional war because it has to be. You know why? Because the colonial powers will never give up their colonies. They only give up in word, not in meaning or deed. Because Europe, as I continue to harp on, has little to no commodities, little to no resources, and they need a mammary gland to suck off so that they can feed the garden. This is real. But nobody wants to address these issues. Some of them skim over it, but they don't go into the heart of the matter, because the heart of the matter is an ugly reality that they don't want to look at. This is racist to its core. This is exceptional to its core. This is imperial folly to its core. Let's go further. All right? You bear with me, everybody. Bear with me. And don't forget to join us. We're gonna try to stream tomorrow too, but don't forget to join us Friday, 11 Central, 12 noon. We'll have economic guru and YouTube sensation Gregory Manarino on the platform again as we talk about economics and geopolitics. Okay, so please join us on that and join us early. And when you come here and the blue screen is on and it says the show will start in a few minutes, stay put. Okay, let's see. We go a little further. It says, this guy, the military spokesman, said it 3 times. So he was emphasizing something. So what's significant about these 2 countries here? Mali and Burkina Faso. What's significant about them? They pushed their former colonial masters out. And they are working in conjunction with China and Russia. And they're trying to break the back of colonial power in Africa. So they want unity. Now, I want you to understand something. So I like to give you an example. I like to give you examples that penetrate the heart so that you can see the other side and their humanity, okay? Because sometimes when people give you news and they brush over it, you can't relate. You can't see the humanity in what other people are doing. You only recognize your part of what's been told to you. Now, let's look at this. The European Union is talking about a European security architecture, right? Remember what I talked about? They're talking about a new European security architecture. Now, I want you to understand the significance of that. Nobody in Asia is destabilizing Europe. Nobody in Latin America is destabilizing Europe. Nobody in West Asia is destabilizing Europe. Nobody in Africa is destabilizing Europe. Nobody in the Middle East is destabilizing Europe. So why all of the focus is on a new European security architecture when it is Europe that is destabilizing Latin America, West Asia, Asia, East Europe, Africa, and the Middle East? You make that make sense. Niger is not trying to steal the resources of Europe. Europe is in Niger stealing the resources of Niger. But the West gives this humanitarian look to it. Oh, we want the democratically elected president back in office. Now, I want you to understand something. All while talking, we talked about Viktor Yanukovych. Why haven't they left Syria at the request of the Syrian Arab Republic's government, the leader, the military, and the people? Because according to the Carter Center, you know President Carter? According to the Carter Center, Bashir Assad was freely and duly reelected as the legitimate president of the Syrian Arab Republic. So to ignore his demands that U.S. troops that are illegally stationed there pack up and leave, that is to ignore democracy. So why aren't we talking about that? Oh, I know why. Do as I say and not as I do. How dare you think that you're on an equal footing with the West? How dare you think that your vote counts, your word counts, if you're not a part of the garden? These people are crazy as hell. Well, let's go further. See, we see these swinging pendulums, right? And these changing paradigms. Think about this. 20 years ago, you would have never seen African nations do what they're doing now. 20 years ago, you would have never seen that. That's something else. What is going on? So now, what some of these nations have done, they have gotten military training from Russia, from Iran, from China, from South Africa. And they have received certain arms from these countries. You got to excuse the phone is going off. Sometimes I even forget we have a landline. But anyway, now these nations are receiving intelligence, weapons, and training from outside sources outside of the West. Right? I wouldn't be surprised if my cell phone goes off in a minute. Outside of the West. No, baby, just leave the phone alone. I got it. Thank you, though. Anyway, so as I said, this you have never seen 20 years ago, but now you see two African nations standing up saying that an attack on Niger is an attack on Burkina Faso and Mali. So why is it okay for America to have a military alliance with NATO, with European nations? And why is it okay for there to be a security architecture for European nations? But there's a big blow up and brouhaha that African nations are now standing up in unity with each other and in unison with one another. Why is that? Because we're still looking at things through a colonial lens. We're still looking at things through a Western-dominated picture. And that's not how things are anymore. There's new paradigms that are constantly on the horizon. These changes are they're quick, they're lightning fast, and they're throwing the colonial powers and the institutions of colonialism and Western dictates. They're throwing them for a loop, and they don't understand how to deal with this. Now, that said, let's go a little further in the article. See, I'm not even lying. Look, I told you about the truth. Look what it says. I'm going to scoot down a little bit. It says, in case of an intervention, the two countries would withdraw from the economic community of West African states and adopt self-defense measures in support of the armed forces and the people of Niger. That's the way it's supposed to be. Europe does it. They don't have the sole prerogative to do it. So it's not so alien for an African nation to do it. So listen, it goes further and says, a military intervention against Niger could destabilize the entire region. Stop right there. What region is he talking about? The Middle Eastern, North African region, which is already on eggshells as we speak. Or could you close the door for a second? Hold on 1 second, everybody. Hey, could you close the office door for a second? Thank you. My daughter came in and I'm trying to get her back out of the thing, close the door. But anyway, and I'm talking about my baby girl. But think about this. The United States on a weekly basis is in Syria, stealing the wheat, the grain, the oil, the gas, and transporting it over into Iraq to be shipped off and be have some of it given to Israel and the other to be sold off for profit. This is what the United States is doing, talking about democracy and freedom and territorial sovereignty and territorial integrity, screaming about Ukraine while ignoring Syria. What do they call them? Sand niggas. That's what they call them. So they disregard them. They disregard their rights. They disregard their security, their hopes, their aspirations, their dreams as a people, a nation, and a region, and they trample over and stomp over their sovereignty, and at the same time demand territorial integrity and sovereignty for European nations. If that is not the height of arrogance, if that is not the height of racism, colonialism, and fascism, you tell me what is, right? Now let's go further. A military intervention against Niger could destabilize the entire region, as had the unilateral NATO intervention in Libya, which was at the root of the expansion of terrorism in the Sahel and West Africa. Stop right there. I have been telling you that and telling you that. It is because of the destruction of Libya that Europe is dealing with an influx of migrants. It is because of the terrorist action of NATO imposed upon Libya in North Africa that the blowback effect of Europe experiencing terrorism and violence and crime. You can't push out all that and not expect some of it to hit back. And then think about this. Well, the people in Europe will say, well, I had nothing to do with that. No, but your governments did. And I throw this back at you, not being inhuman or showing little humanity, but think about this. Think about the hundreds of thousands of people who were killed who had nothing to do with it. Think about the hundreds of people or the thousands of people who are being kept in cages right now in Libya. They're in cages, in zoo cages, and being auctioned off as if it was 1900. Think about the destruction of institutions and the government, businesses, the livelihood of everybody. So when we look at it and we see the destruction of Libya, and then we see the violence and the crime and the influx of migrants there, this is a direct result of the terrorism imposed upon Libya and North Africa by Europe. There's no getting around this. As a matter of fact, in one of Muammar Gaddafi's parting speeches, he told and he forewarned Europe that I am the gate holding back this flood of refugees and migrants. If you remove me, you're going to have some serious problems. He told them that, he warned them that, and they ignored him because he was trying to help to make Africa free. And the blowback effect is the surge in migrants, which in turns is a drain on state budgets, which in turn is pressure on police departments and law enforcement and healthcare, because now you have to allocate more funds to all of this to try to help with the health care of the migrants, to prevent crimes, because some of the people refuse to assimilate. But these are blowback effects to the arrogant policy imposed upon the countries that you bombed, overthrew, destroyed, and colonized. We can't let that go. You can't just ignore that and just scream about your plight without talking about what led to the plight that you're suffering. Because if we don't have an honest, adult-like discussion, things will get drastically worse for you. I'm telling you this. So let's go further. He says, a military intervention against Niger could destabilize the entire region, as had the unilateral NATO intervention in Libya, which was the root of the expansion of terrorism in the Sahel and West Africa. See, when they unleashed that war and then they bagged these fascist, extremist elements that they trained, armed, and gave cover to, they never thought that this would blow back on them, even though they had history as a guide. They ignored historical records, hoping that things would be different. All they thought about is, let me remove him, because if he continues to stay there, then this is a threat to the dollar, which is a threat to the sterling pound, which is a threat to the euro, which is a threat to economic dominance, which is a threat to our stranglehold on Africa. Because the United States, the IMF, the World Bank, they give out these loans for the colonies that they've raped and pillaged. Listen to me good. They've raped and pillaged these countries and stole resources for centuries, and then made these countries poor, then put in weak, inept policymakers, and then they start screaming about the inefficiency of governments in Africa. And then when the African nation tries to go for itself and become financially and independent and resource independent and have stores of farming, guess what they do? They sanction them. Let me give you No Way Out. Good morning, No Way Out. Ha, we know. I'm gonna put that up in just a second. Now listen. Let's look at this. Let's go to Zimbabwe for a minute under Robert Mugabe, because I know it hurts a lot of people's feelings, but we have to address these things. When you leave, listen, if you have cancer and you address it with a Band-Aid, does that slow down, or prevent the cancer from spreading? There must be an action plan to take that cancer on head on, meaning that you must address the underlying causes of the cancer in order to stop the cancer from metastasizing and overtaking the whole body, right? Now, let's go to Zimbabwe. There was one time they wanted to impose, I forget I cannot pronounce that guy's name, but he died from a heart attack. He was the prime minister. They wanted to impose him as the leader of Zimbabwe to oust Mugabe. Mugabe was trying to do what any right leader would have done from the ills of colonialism. There is no way that you can justify Europeans comprising 3% to 5% of Zimbabwe and controlling 95 to 98% of all arable farmland. There's no way you can justify that. There's no flipping way you can justify that when you are not even the original inhabitant of Zimbabwe. And all of the industries were controlled. See, all of these were holdovers from colonialism. Listen to what I'm saying. Just give me a second. Everybody who's listening, just give me a second. We've got to address these issues. So what Mugabe asked, he said, let's do a land appropriation. We will pay you a fair price, even though we shouldn't have, because this was attained through violence, war, torture, colonialism, and theft. But we'll pay you the going price for the land, and you'll change it over to the farmers who farmed that land, because the people who farmed the land was the people who were indigenous to the land. Listen, this was unacceptable to Great Britain. This was unacceptable to Germany. This was unacceptable to the United States. This was unacceptable to Brussels. He wanted to give back the land to the people, but he didn't just take it. He wanted to pay a fair price. The United States and the UK were adamant about not transferring the land back to the owners, the true owners of the land. They were adamant. And they warned him. And he said, listen, I got to do what's right by my people. So they sanctioned him. And when they sanctioned him, they broke the back of the Zimbabwean dollar. Ironically, the same thing is happening now to the US dollar and the US pound and the euro, right? As they sanction Russia. See, as thou hast done, so shall it be done unto thee. Now listen. When he did that, and he said, listen, I want the land given back to they went through the deeds, followed the land deeds to the original families that owned those lands. And they said, these must be turned back over to these people, and the government will pay a fair price. The owners wouldn't turn them over. So he said, look, you got 72 hours to turn them over and get your price, or I won't stand in the way of them taking the land back, because it is theirs. You got it by deception, fraud, war, torture, and rape. What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? If I go in your house and take your house and live there and transfer the deed to my child, that doesn't make it my house. It's still your house, and the descendants of yours have the right to it. Right? Is that not right? We have to use these brain cells again. So this goes along with what's going on with in Nigeria. Okay. And no way out. I'm gonna put your everything that you put up there, I addressed a few minutes ago, but I'm gonna put it up on the screen in just a minute. Let me get this thought out of my head. So the United States and UK, they fomented strife. They fomented trouble. They sanctioned, and then they went after the commodities. They went after everything that was vital to the country. And then, as the land was transferred to the original owners, the US and the UK sanctioned fertilizer, sanctioned everything that would make the farms productive. Now, I want you to understand something, because the West gave you this, that the farmers, after the farm, see, this is racist. They want you to believe that the black people who took over the farmlands could not farm the farmlands. They didn't tell you that they put up every obstacle for those new farmers to get the nitrogen and all of the fertilizer to continue and maintain the farms that they farmed. They were the farmers. How do you think that they were getting the yield, the increase? It was not the so-called white owners of the farms that was doing it. It was the very people who took over the farms. But when those people took over the farms, the US and the UK sanctioned every avenue by which Zimbabwe could get the things necessary to maintain their farms. This is the reality. If you think I'm lying, go Google this. Okay? I'm telling you the God honest truth. And I know sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. And I know sometimes truth can be ugly to you because you're not used to truth being so raw. But it is the truth. So this has everything to do with Niger. So now we look at Niger, or Niger, and the same thing is going on. The military aligned with China, Russia, and Iran decided, hey, why the hell should you get all the resources out of our land? Why should you have military bases in our land? Why should you dictate to us and be able to run and roam free in our land when we have a hell of a time just to get a 90-day passport to come to Europe? Think about that. So what they wanted to do is roll back the military presence of these countries. Because listen, right after this paragraph that I just read you, remember what I told you about the nations that have troops there. Listen what it says here. France currently has 1,500 troops and a drone base in Niger, while the U.S. has 1,100 troops and 2 drone bases, according to the Financial Times. Now, why is that? Why? Now, for all of you who are listening to me, I want you to just, for 1 minute, just be quiet and just open up your eyes for just a second and just listen to the scenario I posed to you. If there is nothing wrong with the French, with the British, with the Germans, with the UK, and with the US having drone bases and troops in Niger, then you shouldn't see anything wrong with Niger having troops and drone bases in the UK, in Germany, in Italy, in France, in the US, and across Europe. And if you see something wrong with that, but see nothing wrong with the Europeans doing it, then that shows me your mentality. And that shows me your mental makeup. You understand? Why is it okay for Europeans to colonize? I told you I was going to get a phone call. Why is it okay for Europeans to colonize Africa? And notice they always put these bases near resource-rich areas. Resource-rich areas. But it is not okay for even migrants to cross the border to look for a decent living after the European nations have bombed the hell out of the nations where the migrants are coming from. You make that make sense. Make that make sense. So again, I want to present to you truth, right? So let me while I'm doing this, let me go back to something because I see I want to post something up here. Give me 1 second. Let me take this off the screen for a second. And let me highlight something over here. Give me 1 second as I'm doing this. See, what I'm trying to show you is that this mind of colonialism and exceptionalism, this racist mentality, is what is pervasive in Western policies and politics today. You have no problem. Think about this. How many of you guys have spoken out that the U.S. has a base about 20 to 40 miles away from Jeddah, Arabia, or Mecca? Huh? Military bases. Now, I want you to understand something. Those are the two holiest, three places are holy places in Islam, three major holy places: Jerusalem, Mecca, and Medina. Hold that down. Jerusalem, Mecca, and Medina. Those three. All right? Those three places. The United States has bases by all three. They have them in occupied Palestine, they have them by Mecca, and they have them by Medina. Now, what if Iran were to have a base 20 miles from the Vatican? That would be unacceptable, right? Huh? What if Iran had a base 20 miles from Washington, D.C., or 40 miles from London, or 15 miles from Brussels, or 16 miles from Berlin? That would be unacceptable, right? So why is it acceptable for you to have bases in the seat of Islam? I'm asking you this because if there's nothing racist, if there's nothing exceptional, if there's nothing colonialistic about this, then why can't they in turn have bases where you, in the countries that have bases in their lands? Because remember, when you put these bases there, a little of your sovereignty gets swiped away. And America is the greatest proponent of territorial integrity and national sovereignty, isn't it? So why can't the Japanese have a base in California? Why can't the Koreans have a base in Nevada? Huh? Why can't the Filipinos have a base in New Mexico? That's unacceptable. We would never have bases, foreign bases on our land. Well, what in the hell makes you think that those nations want your bases on their territory? Huh? Man, I'm telling you. See, this is how we get down. Let's see. Let me highlight this real quick. No Way Out says, and he's always here. Boom, No Way Out. That's my guy. The old Nigerian president was a French and U.S. puppet. As we said to you all, he did all in his power to please the U.S. and France at the cost of the people. You know what? No Way Out. That is why France has threatened airstrikes. I want you to understand something. I want you to understand something. With all of their drumbeating of war with Ukraine, right? And Russia's intervention into Ukraine, and how the French and the U.S. continue to talk about national sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, the democratic Ukraine, right? How come the French is not issuing airstrikes to the Russians? Huh? Because that's in Europe. Niger is in Africa. Why isn't the United States talking about having airstrikes in Ukraine? Why? Because Russia has the military wherewithal to rebuff any and all strikes and then go on the offensive. So they pick on these weak nations, the smaller nations who are trying to pull themselves up by the bootstrap, and they're trying to reach for some semblance of independence. And so what America, the UK, and Europe are trying to do is cut off the umbilical cord before it ever gets started, before it gets in this stage of crawling and then going into walking and then from walking to running. This is what they're doing with these places. So No Way Out says, yeah, I told them about Germany has troops there. No Way Out says Germany also has 300 troops there. Again, it would blow you guys' minds if you understood that all across North Africa, nations like Australia, Canada, yeah, those nations have bases, illegal outposts in that region. And all of their bases, they connect. All of those bases, if you look at where the bases and the outposts are from the United States, I'm talking about in all the different countries, they are there to act as a coordinated pressure point. So if something happens here in a U.S. area, these other bases can act because all of them are members of what? What are they members of? The North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. And why are they there? They are there on strategic areas to siphon off the resources and to keep the people at bay so that the garden can live like the garden and everybody else can live like savages. See, they got one of the best grifts that you could ever have. Again, this is what I'll do. I'll offer you crumbs off the table. Now, if you don't accept this, I'm going to come in there and take it. But you got all these resources. You let my companies come in there. I'll send in a few military people in there to protect you from overthrow. You'll get crumbs off the table. My companies pay you kickbacks, extract the resources, and guess what happens? They extract them, take them back to the United States, Australia, Canada, Europe, New Zealand. Then they take the resources and then they refine them and then they sell them, stolen resources, or I say stolen because I don't care. Even if they pay pennies on the dollars, they're stolen because those were the people's resources, right? So they go back and they refine them, and what was $100 in resources refined is $5,000. So now you're paying for your own resources, but you have to get a loan to pay for it, which further puts you in more debt to the West, which means that now they have more global system. This is what they do. It's one of the best grifts ever put on the planet. So this, let me highlight this one too, No Way Out. And No Way Out says 74.8% of Nigerian uranium. I told you guys, he put it up there. I told you 74.8% of the Nigerian uranium going to France for nuclear power plants produces 20.2%. And it says 20.2% are going to the U.S. Niger does not have one nuclear power plant. They have coal plants and they have to import it from France. And isn't that something? You telling me this is not racist? You telling me this is not racist? You telling me this is not exceptional? You telling me this is not colonialistic or fascist? I'm going to come into your country and demand a certain leader who will allow me to do what I want, when I want, how I want, where I want, and regardless of your laws, forget that. My laws supersede yours. And if you violate my U.S. laws, I'll come into your territory and extradite you back to my jurisdiction and hold you accountable in my courts, even though I committed the crime on your territory. Do you understand that a system like this cannot go on in perpetuity? I wish I had my Bible here. Let me see. Hold on one second. I would read you something. Where's my book at? Let me see if I can. Hold on one second, guys. I'm reaching for something. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Oh, turn right to it. God is good. Turn right to it. God is good. Now, in the book of Micah, right? Listen to me good. I want you to listen good. This is what it says in chapter 2 for you so-called Christians in the Christian West. And tell me if it reminds you of America. Tell me if it reminds you of NATO. Tell me if it reminds you of the UK. All right. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. And they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall you go heartily, for this time is evil. So when we're looking at the economic plight, and we're looking at the downturn in ethics and morality and principles, and we're looking at the devolving situation domestically, and then we're looking at a situation that is devolving internationally, it gives you why it's happening right there. Woe to them that devises of iniquity. Remember what Pompeo said? I was the leader of the CIA. All we did was lie, cheat, and stole, and kill. This Pompeo, the former Secretary of State under Trump, who was the CIA director. Woe to them that devises iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. What is America? We do it because we're America. We're exceptional. You do as I say, not as I do. Isn't that what America and the West do? They do that, right? Right? I'm not making this stuff up. It's right here. And it says, and they covet fields. Okay. What are they doing in Syria right now? They're in the wheat fields, stealing all of the grain. They're in the oil fields, stealing all of the oil. They're stealing so much oil and gas from Syria. Syria has to import oil and gas from Iran because the United States stole the oil fields. A third of the country is under U.S. occupation, a third of it. Look at Yemen. The United States, the UK, and Israel are occupying strategic areas, still in the wheat, still in the fertile land, still in all the oil and gas, right? In those fields out there. What are they doing in Iraq? Huh? Tell me. And what are they trying to do in Niger? They tried in Mali and Burkina Faso. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house. Aren't they oppressing the people in those countries that they're from, that they're occupying? That's what you call oppression. When you have a foreign entity uninvited in a country and refuses to leave, right? That is oppressing the population, oppressing the government's independence, and oppressing the independence of government institutions and the will of the people, right? That is oppression. And they covet fields and they take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house and even his heritage. It says a man and his heritage. That's what they're doing. And it says, therefore, here's the reason why America is going through what she's going through right now. Here's the reason why the UK is in a death spiral economically. Here's why the European Union, in the European Union, unemployment, homelessness, poverty, all of that stuff is through the roof. Here's the reason. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family. See, what is a family? A cohesive unit, a hereditary unit, right? People with the same ideas, same values, right? Same goals, a family. Listen what it says. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family. What family? The family that does all that evil right there because it's in the power of their hand. Do I divide? So this is the work of God. This is not the work of the Fed. This is not the work of of Biden. This is not the work of Brussels, but their policies initiated this. So God says, behold, against this family do I, not we, not us, not them, not they, I, devise an evil from which ye shall not remove your neck. You ain't getting out of this one. Neither shall ye go heartily, for this time is evil. So you dished out evil, right? And guess what happens? As thou hast done, so shall it be done unto thee. So you dished out evil, guess what happens? According to science, evil returns on your neck, either at an equal or greater capacity, right? According to science, any action will receive an equal or greater reaction in return, right? According to science. So let's go a little further. No Way Out puts up here. Let me see. Come on. Let's see. Let's see. It says it is French colonialism till today that hold countries in hostage over financial means. To force the African countries to hold colonial. That's, you know what? I talked on that. I'm going to talk about that right while we're on the air. Okay. Just like with the French, with the British Commonwealth, you have a French Commonwealth. And what these organizations or these unions are to hold, they are holdovers from colonial times. And what they do, the former colonies, they hold them in an economic and political union. And a lot of these colonies still hold the dollars, the currency of that nation, like Mali and Algeria and all these former countries that used to be a part that was under French rule. Then you find other smaller, weaker countries that still use the French franc. Now, what's ironic is France doesn't even use the French franc. Just like how they did, again, I told you guys on one of the shows, and it's hot. I got the window open. I'm farming right now, and so you guys got to forgive me. But listen, when it comes to Haiti, because Haiti, you call Haiti a basket case. You call Haiti a poverty, criminal-driven place. But you didn't understand how Haiti got that way. With the CIA and the French intelligence and the MI5 and MI6 and the German special force, all of them shipping cocaine and opium. See, Haiti is the stopover point from east to west and from west to east. And so they have to keep a pliant, weak government there so that they can transfer all of the narcotics that they want. This is that black budget money that the CIA and all of these foreign intelligence agencies make outside of government dictates. So they need a pliant Haiti. And check this out. Haiti lost in the international court against France. France sued Haiti. Look this up. This is one of the main drivers of what keeps Haiti impoverished and keeps crime rampant across Haiti. The French sued Haiti. They didn't sue Haiti for killing them. They didn't sue Haiti for killing them. They didn't sue Haiti for infringement of property rights. You know what they sued the Haitians for? For the loss of revenues because Haitians revolted from French colonialism and became an independent nation. Go look this up. I'm not making this up. They sued for losses in rubber and rum that they could have made if the Haitians would have remained slaves. They won this with the courts in Europe. Billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. And Haiti still has to pay that out of the little nominal budget that they get every year to France. This is no lie. This is no lie. Go look that up. So let's go a little further. It says, yeah. So let's go to something, and I'll come back to the comments in just a second. But I want you to think about this. Think about the arrogance of the Western world. Think about how racist they are. Because nobody ever sits down and thinks about that. Okay, America has bases and European nations have bases. They call it coalition bases in Iraq and in Syria. Even though the Iraqis, every year that all coalition forces be removed from Iraq. But America disregards that, even though that was a democratically voted, legislated law. Democracy doesn't work in that instance. And Europe doesn't say anything about it because it pertains to them also. The Syrian parliament has voted for the ouster of illegal U.S. troops in its property, on its lands. And it was democratically held and approved. And the United States prefers to ignore that democratic law of a sovereign territory. About democracy and sovereignty. Man, StreamYard, you tripping, man. You really tripping. I mean, I know I'm getting under some people's skin, but it's cool. But you don't have to block and buffer my show all the time. This is not, and YouTube, I understand that you'll probably take another 30, 40, 50 subscribers. You do that every single day from a show. It's cool. It's cool. This is what I deal with, and I'm going to continue to get it down like this. I'm not going to compromise on this truth. I'm telling you, the truth of the matter is that we're in a changing world. We see the pendulum swinging. That's hence the name of the show. Swinging pendulums, not pendulum, but pendulums, plural. Because there are so many things at play here. And we see changing paradigms. They're changing narratives, changing realities that are underway. Think about this. 20 years ago, you would have never thought that two African nations would have stood up in unity to defend their third African brother nation. You wouldn't have never thought that. But they're doing it. Niger is seeing Burkina Faso and Mali stand up saying a declaration of war, an airstrike on Niger is an airstrike on us. If you bomb or invade Niger, then that is a declaration of war on us. You never thought you would see that. You never thought you lived to see that. You thought all of them was docile from colonialism. But they're quickly awakened because this is the time that the dead must rise. So, listen. They were mentally dead to the reality of the situation globally. And as the truth is breathed into their head and into their hearts, they're taking a breath of life. And they are now standing up saying, hey, if freedom is for you, freedom is for me. If unity is for you, then this cannot just be your prerogative. It has to be for us too. If security is what you're talking about, Europe, then it has to be implemented across Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and the globe all over. It's not just your prerogative. How about riches and prosperity? This is not just a prerogative of Europe or NATO. So nations are now starting to stand up. The Pacific Islands are standing up. They're reaching out for something better, for something more. That's why you see the global South and the global East, the Eurasian Economic Union, ASEAN, the West Asian Economic Union, the Latin American Economic Union, the West African Economic Union, the African Economic Union. You're seeing this. The BRICS Plus. Because there's something better outside of the paradigm that we've grown to know, which is the Western world, the Western thought, the Western school of thought. Because if we look at where we have come with the Western school of thought, it has put us on the brink of thermonuclear war. Do we want thermonuclear war? Most people don't. Evidently, some people do. You say, well, nobody wants that. But then why the hell you keep making nuclear weapons then? Right? So somebody tells me, Nobody wants to smoke drugs. And then you keep going to get them and keep smoking them. Oh, nobody wants to take a drink of alcohol, and you keep pouring out of alcohol, chugging them down. When a person who they are, believe them, right? So on the one hand, you hear the Western leadership, no, or nuclear war could not be fought. Then why are you investing $10 trillion in the upgrading of nuclear weapons? When $10 trillion could eradicate poverty across the entire planet. What's more important, the eradication of poverty and a fair and level playing field, or to upgrade and build up another storehouse of thermonuclear warheads? And if you're saying that this is for national security, who's threatening your nation and who is threatening your security? Oh, Osama bin Laden, 9/11. Well, you trained them, you armed them, you financed them. Russia didn't do that, you did that. Africa didn't do that, you did that. Middle East didn't do that, you did that. Well, ISIS is a spin-off, a spin-off of Al-Qaeda. You did that. Nobody else did that. So you want to blame everybody else for what you did, when you are threatening everybody else's security and ignoring everybody else's national interest and everybody else's right to life and security and prosperity, because you talking about your security when you continue to implement policies that are a complete detriment to not only your security, but to the security of the entire planet Earth. Make that make sense. We need nuclear weapons. You have crazies out here that'll use them. Yeah, we do have crazies out here that'll use them. Call the American government. The only nation on the planet has used them, not once, not even twice. Because people say the United States used nuclear weapons twice. They used them more than twice. With Cynthia McKinney, two-time Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, a while ago. And I don't know if she recalled the conversation we had, but I think it's on I have the conversation on a podcast. But anyway, she was talking about the depleted uranium. It looked, the low yield depleted uranium and all that stuff across Iraq and Afghanistan. Man, listen to me good. America has to pay for these crimes. Something that nobody wants to acknowledge. If she does, listen to me. Let's reason for a second. This is not me talking about hating America. This is not me talking about hating the Western world. This is me talking about the reality of the facts. Okay. If I continue to commit crimes and if I continue to ravage lands, here we go again. StreamYard, you tripping. You suck, StreamYard. You suck. Anyway, if I continue to ravage, rape, pillage, occupy, wage war on lands and people around the world, right? Don't you think eventually evil fallout will happen my way? Now, America has this mind of exceptionalism. This is the problem. Listen to me good. This is one of the problems here. They tell you in one mind, we believe in God. We are Christian. This is what they tell you. Right? Well, if you believe, don't you believe in a judgment? Huh? And I know that judgment is reserved for those that judgment is due. You cannot implement policies of murder, rape, pillaging, robbing, occupying, bombing, stealing, and exploiting on a constant basis and then accept and hope for mercy on the other hand. Would Jesus do that? Would Muhammad do that? Would Abraham do that? Would Elijah do that? Would Ishmael do that? Would any of the noble servants of God do that? then how can you say on one hand that you believe in God and do all these ungodly things and not expect God's judgment on you? Remember Madeleine Albright? She said she believed that it was worth it to kill 1 million people or more. That's what Madeleine Albright said. To kill 1 million Iraqis or more to overthrow Saddam Hussein, she said it was worth it. And Iraq is still dealing with the after effects of that. She was the Secretary of State at the time. Hillary Clinton. He came, he saw, he died. Laughing after it was told to her in her ear in an interview that Muammar Gaddafi was assassinated. So you go around the world doing that and you don't think judgment is coming back to you? Do you not see that judgment is already in your doors? The great divide. There's a racial divide in your country. There's a wealth divide. There's a cultural divide. All of these things are recipes, ingredients in a recipe for civil war and revolution. Do you understand that? I don't think these people get this. You cannot do evil constantly and then say, oh, God, I believe in God. Yeah, you believe in a God, but it ain't a God of justice. You believe in a God of money, a God of pillaging, a God of raping, a God of killing. That's what you believe because your actions show that to us. When a person shows you who you are, who they are, believe them. Believe them. Don't believe something other than what they're showing you. All right? Because you can be heartbroken and be devastated when you really find out who that person is or what that person is about. Yeah, No Way Out says, I do not hate Americans. What I do disapprove and hate is the U.S. elite who thinks that they can do what they want unpunished. I couldn't have said it better than you said, right? It says, and my old friends from work in Detroit, think the same. That's what I'm saying. They think that they are untouchable. This is why I go back to the law that God laid at the base of the universe when he created the universe. At the base of the universe, he laid freedom, justice, and equality. At the base of the universe, that is to be enjoyed by each and every man, woman, and child that is birthed into his creation. Also, there is something there that is laid there as a trigger point for right and wrong. And that is that law of what goes around eventually comes back around. And when it comes back around with such a force that could be devastating. You understand? It can be devastating. So these people who are policymakers, who continue to push for war and occupation, these are the people that are putting the stakes in the heart of American empire. These are the ones that are putting the stakes into the heart of Western hegemony. It's not me, it's them. I'm just pointing out the obvious that nobody has the cojones to say because they fear being banned. They fear being ostracized. Hell, I'm ostracized by a whole bunch of these alternative media sites. They fear losing their money makers. But it's never been about money for me. It's been about right and wrong. And so, will America change? I doubt it. The judgment is upon her. I'm telling you this because she refused. Even think about this right here. I want you to think about something and tell me if I'm off point here. Even in the midst of economic decline, unemployment that is exploding, homelessness, right? The likes of which you've never seen before. The same can be said of the European Union and the UK, all right? But I'm just leading off with America. But I'm talking about the West in general, but the US and the UK specifically. Even in the midst of global blowback and the rejection of a US dollar, which is the lifeblood of the Western world, and the rejection of the Western so-called rules-based system. Even in the midst of all of that, America continues to provoke, stoke, and instigate war, revolution, destabilization, and government overthrow. Even in the midst of that. If you say on one hand, I'm sorry for doing something, listen to me. Say, for instance, I go to you and say, no way out. I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. Yeah, I stabbed you a couple of times. Luckily, you're not dead. While I'm talking to you, I got a pick knife, and I'm stabbing your sister and your uncle and I'm stabbing you in the legs, and I'm saying, I'm sorry for what I'm doing. Yet you see me still doing it. That does not bring contrition of heart, and that does not bring forgiveness from him. Because I'm still doing what I just said that I was sorry of doing. And you hear my chickens out there right now. And it's ironic, I don't even eat chicken. But listen, so I don't eat beef and I don't eat chicken, don't eat pork. Okay. But again, sometimes, I see this. Hold on one second, everybody. Let me mute this 1 second. Give me 1 second. And let me play this clip here let me mute this. I gotta take this. That was my mom right there. She said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were there. I'm sorry." But anyway, just think about that. I just want you. I put these things on your mind to think. And I'm not going to kowtow to anybody to get guests on the show. I'm not going to kowtow to anybody to be invited on the show. I'm not going to kowtow to anybody to get subscribers. I'm not going to do it to get donations, to get super chats, super thanks. I'm not going to do none of that. Because that's not going to make me or break me. I don't do that. God is good all the time. He always makes a way. You understand? But again, how can you look for forgiveness when you haven't even shown that you are worthy of forgiveness? If I go to court after raping somebody and beating somebody and killing somebody, and then they let me out on bond to my arraignment, to my trial, and then when I go back there, I raped, I killed, and I beat up somebody again, and I go before the judge and I say, I'm sorry. And the judge just so happened to not get the paperwork at the time and say, well, we're going to let you on. We're going to postpone your trial and we're going to let you out. But make sure you stay out of trouble. And when I go back to trial, they pull up on my record that since that day, I've raped 50 people, robbed 50 people, killed 60 people, and beat up 100 people, along with the other ones. And then I say, Judge, I'm sorry. Do you think the judge will have mercy on me? Mm-hmm. And mind you, he find out that I have a fight planned for after court. Do you think the judge would have mercy on me? Well, why do you think America thinks God would have mercy on her? Or the UK believes that God will have mercy on it? Or the European Union believes that God will have mercy on it when we see the policies that they continue to institute and push not only domestically, but around the globe? Huh? I'm trying to get some clarity here. I'm hoping that we can get some clarity here, because what's going on is the collapse of the Western world. The collapse of the Western world. Here we go again. StreamYard, stop buffering me. Every time I get to going with you all, StreamYard starts free. Great. I guess they give me to go ahead and stop. I might come back later on and do a show if I get some time. Do a vampire stream tonight if I get a little chance to. If not, I'm going to try to schedule some. I tried to schedule 2 shows. The show that I had scheduled, and then another one, but I ran into some trouble on one of these platforms. I won't say, but I did. So listen, spread the news about this platform. Tell others. Even when the show is not scheduled, come by and try to go into the community tab to see what's going on. Also, go over to locals, subscribe to the locals. We're gonna try to have a live stream. I didn't get a chance to have one last week, but we're gonna try to have another one tomorrow. Is what, Wednesday? We're going to have one either Wednesday or Thursday, a 30-minute, 40-minute live stream, okay? So go over there, go and subscribe to all of our platforms, tell everybody else about them, because, we're having problems on StreamYard and on YouTube. So we can still converse together, we can still chat together, we can still talk over issues, because the only way to come to a solution is to pick the brains of everybody, okay? My thoughts are no more important than yours, and yours are no more important than mine. Remember that we're on an equal footing, and if you love truth, I love you. But remember that the true and living God will always love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. And this, I have to say, going out. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. I truly love you all. Thank each and every one of you for joining me on this platform.